Well, all right, here we are down in the heart of the Wildcat Cave, the catacombs. Yes, if these walls could only talk. Yeah, I've been down here about 20 years, and a lot of rock and roll memorabilia. Posters and bands and tapes and drums and everything. And that's kind of what this Wildcat Tale's all about. It's the bands. And I'd like to just make note of a few things. Here's my first drum that I ever got. That was Christmas 1965. And then the next year, I got a drum set, and this is what's left of it. Tenor tom with the antlers sticking out. I won the hat contest that night. And that was a Blue Sparkle Whitehall drum set that I got Christmas '66. And a lot of great posters down here. This is Beatles launching Sgt. Pepper, 1967. What we're doing here in the Wildcat Cave is talking about the band business and how I started playing the drums, and my first drum and then my second drum. And what I've got here is my drum throne from my Ludwig set, 1970. I have been sitting on this throne playing the drums for over 40 years. Okay, now let's talk about the bands, because it all started in the summer of '67, the summer of love, when I was lucky enough to be approached by some local musicians that were playing in a band called the Lovejoys. And they wanted me to play a big wedding gig with them, and we played on the Kappa Ann on the Ellis River, the riverboat. That was pretty cool. That was '67. And then in the next year, I was fortunate enough to hook up with the band I played with for 14 years. And that's because I met Randy Coe. He played in a band called the Shades of Blue down at the Ellis Y dances. And I was able to sit in on that. Thank you, Dick Gilmore, very much, left-handed drummer. And so, one day, Randy Coe with Virgil Hansen and Don Drehas from Bertram, they just came to the McDonough brothers' house and rounded me up and said, "Sprat, get your drums. We're going to rehearse this afternoon. Tonight we're playing a gig at Bertram Town Hall." And that was the Saturday before Easter, 1968. And that band played together for 14 years. Maybe there's a few pictures behind here. This would be us opening for Black Oak, Arkansas, '75. The band from '71, the band from '70, '77, if you're getting any of this. The drums, the bands. Wanted to mention the Lovejoys and also, of course, Stone Garden. Certainly a major Eastern Iowa rock group. And then I was off to Los Angeles. Okay, well, as I was mentioning with Stone Garden, playing together from '68 till '82, actually about 1980, we regrouped a little bit and renamed that band Rampage for the last couple of years, especially '81 and '82. Big shows, big equipment, big crowds, a lot of fun. I ended up going to Los Angeles, California. Lived right in the heart of Hollywood for 6 years. Those were some really fabulous, great, wild times. And I was fortunate out there to play with some really great bands. I hooked up with a band called Chris and the Fits, and we played big shows and rehearsed and recorded at all the major studios. And those guys were very professional. And I was also lucky to get involved with the band called Flip City, and played the Palace and rode around in limousines and had a great time. And then there was a band called The Return, which was great because we were featured on a MTV video, National Basement Tapes Battle of the Bands contest. So that kind of looks good on the old rock and roll resume. And then I was selected to play drums in a band called Imitation Life, which had already made one record for Capital EMI. So I was on their second record that was released in Europe and in the US, Imitation Life. So I had a pretty good run in LA with great bands and studios and gigs and MTV and albums and everything else. And, well, you know, in Los Angeles, there's 1,000 drummers. There's 1,000 bands. The music papers come out every week, and there's a list this long, drummers wanted. This long, drummers needed. You know, bands looking for drummers, drummers looking for bands. It's 24/7. You can play in 3 or 4 bands at a time. You rehearse endlessly every day, and it costs a lot of money. You have to pay to rehearse. There's no basements in California. You have to pay to people haul your equipment and do your hair and your makeup. And you play all these big shows where there's 4 bands a night, 7 nights a week. And it's a lot of fun, but everybody's trying to get a record deal. Everybody wants to be on MTV. And it's all about how many people can you get to come to see your show. 50 people? Nobody cares. 500 people? Like Quiet Riot, Rat, Bangles, Go-Go's, you get a record deal. And I was in the right place at the right time to some extent. I was able to, play all the big studios, make records, appear on MTV, play the Palace, great bands, great gigs, a lot of fun. I recommend it. Well, being in Los Angeles all those years, it can kind of wear you down. Sometimes you can't even park anywhere near your house. And you get a parking ticket every day. And the pollution and the pestilence and, it's kind of odd because white people are a minority and everywhere you go, nobody speaks English. But I had decided, after Los Angeles and all the good things I had done, I figured it was kind of a rat race. It was wearing me out. I'm going to go back to Cedar Rapids, stash my stuff, get my bread together, and go to Europe. Because I had knew some drummers that had done quite well in Europe. Then I got back to Cedar Rapids and found out right away I was the father of a 15-year-old son. I found a great job. I joined a great band in Hostage. And then I met Tony. This all happened inside of 90 days. A Wildcat whirlwind of activity. Well, all right. I got back from Los Angeles, California. I hadn't been back more than just a few days. And I found out I had a son, which was entirely mind-boggling, but not altogether part of this music story. I was also fortunate enough within just a few weeks to hook up with one of the better bands in Eastern Iowa history, Hostage. And that was at the end of '88, and that rolled fast and furious through '89 and '90, and then it just built up steam and got better, and we recorded and won the Battle of the Bands. Truly one of the better bands in Eastern Iowa history. And that was, about 20 years ago when I left Hostage. I guess I was going through some changes. I had been, living a wild kind of rock and roll debauchery for 25 years. And it was time for me to go on a bit of a solo maneuver, and that led me to singing, songwriting, comedy, poetry. And I would go down to Iowa City and I'd be on public television, and I would do Dead White Mountain poetry and CSPS art galleries and museums. And I was just kind of shelved the drums for a while. I thought I'd just kind of do my own thing. Of course, it led me back to the drums as I met some people in Iowa City and they wanted to form a group, and then I formed my own group down there in Iowa City called the Catskills. It was blues and rock and original tunes, and that was right about the time of my 40th birthday, 1994. Catskills played together for a few years, played quite a few gigs, and after I left the Catskills, about the spring of 1996, also had left my relationship with Angelou Kitka. One thing led to another. I was out at Usher's Ferry. Wait a second, I think I'm telling the wrong story. Bands, girls, who can tell the difference? After I left the Catskills in '96, and also my relationship with Angel had ended, I sensed a change coming my way, and when I met Nancy Dearborn, I went off on a spiritual quest that led me to Unity and all these churches and schools and choirs, and that was a fabulous time. And I was excited to start my own solo business, Tripoli Entertainment. Energy, excitement, enthusiasm, the power of love, shouting it from the rooftops, sharing the wealth. And it was a really great time in 97 and 98. And I kept that going all the way through 99 and 2000. But then all of a sudden I found myself kind of veering back to playing in bands, in bars. There was the Rockin' Wildcat project. Now, Rockin' Wildcat started because I had met a guitarist at a church gig. Well, he needed a drummer because he had a studio and songs, and I, of course, needed a guitarist and a producer, so we hooked up and started out as a bit of a Christian rock band, but as we got into the originals, one thing led to another, and we started making a record, and then we started going out and playing in bars. I really thought I could take this powerful, positive message of love, peace, freedom, and happiness into the dens of iniquity. You can imagine, that didn't fly too high. After working in the Rockin' Wildcat project for a couple of years, as we continued to work on the recording, it must be mentioned we were the two-man, 10-piece band. In other words, we had live guitar, drums, and vocals, but everything else, the bass, the keys, the auxiliary percussion, all the layers, were all done in computers and sound modules and pre-production. I thought it was brilliant, but it didn't fly too high in the clubs, especially using electric drums. That confuses people. Now, unfortunately, we kind of had what you might call a difference of opinion, musical differences, and I ended up taking my songs and going solo, and that's the 10th Power CD. 10 songs about love, peace, freedom, and happiness, family, fun, joy. I was talking about how I took my songs from the Rockin' Wildcat project and went solo, and I had my own 10-song CD, and I started selling that, and I formed my own Wildcat club, so to speak, and I was pretty excited about that. And I was solo for quite a while. I'd go off and do big shows, sometimes for my son in Iowa City or in Illinois, and I'd, play the whole one-man band, because I had a version of that 10-song CD without drums and vocals, so I could literally play it one-man live. Then I had my keyboard synthesizer sequencer. I had about 150 songs I programmed on there, so I could play the acoustic guitar and be the one-man band with the backing tracks, and blow a little trumpet and harmonica, read a little poetry, do a little comedy, and so on and so forth. Okay, are we still rolling on all this? After all those years of doing solo shows, here and there and everywhere, to some extent it was satisfying and gratifying, and yet I really kind of miss just rocking hard and fierce in a bar band, a cover band, where you can do that. And, about a year ago, I was thinking about going into the studio and making a record, and I didn't know who the musicians would be. I didn't know what songs I'd do. And when a local band, Harvey Headbanger, presented themselves as an opportunity, I thought, well, great. These are the musicians, and I'll go in the hard rock direction. And so it's been really great. I joined Harvey Headbanger in December of '09, I guess, and we played together all last year. A lot of rehearsals, a lot of shows, a lot of recordings, a lot of writing, a lot of fun. Love the band business. 44 years, that's a good number. 4-4, common time, rock and roll. 4-4, baby. 44 years of rock and roll. And now I'm rocking with Harvey Headbanger. And sometimes I still go out and play guitar at hospitals or nursing homes, and people think that's interesting because, the Wildcat's supposed to be this party animal, pillaging, plundering pirate, and the Wildcat is this peace-loving prophet of joy. It could be no other way, and so it is. I am eternally grateful. Thank you, and you, and you, and especially you, and me too. See you later.